Eric is a graduate of the University of Alabama in 1994 with a BS in civil engineering. He's been with the Alabama Department of Transportation since 1992 and currently is the assistant state maintenance engineer for bridges and is currently on the AASHTO GOBS committee, technical committees for bridge management, evaluation, rehabilitation, and software and technology. So.
Thank you. This is what happens when you miss one conference call. You find yourself on the agenda. And they put me right after lunch, so we'll either dazzle you or put you to sleep. But hopefully if I put you to sleep, Richard can wake you back up. What I was asked to do was basically to show how do you go from inspection to actions or preservation to performance measures. How does that all tie in? So I took the approach, we'll try to walk you through that on the bridge level and then at the network level of how you can do that using the AASHTO or BrM product. So this is basically just a basic inspection report that you would all see using element level inspection. And a couple of things to point out here is if you look at the elements, I know it's hard to see, but you can see you've got a deck that's starting to have a good portion of it in condition state 3, so it's starting to see some problems. And you can see your steel protective coating is basically in a failed condition. So those are the things that should jump out to you looking at the inspection report. So how does that get to actions? Well, in Alabama, I think like a lot of states, a lot of our actions right now are just inspector driven. We relied on our inspector to make those recommendations and assign a priority for it, and that's what drove our program. And so that process can still happen and will still continue to happen within BrM. So in this particular bridge, when you look at what's in there, the inspector, the only thing he recommended at this time would be to paint the structure. Okay, so that's the only recommendation he made. So at this point within the software, you can then take and run an analysis of those inspector work recommendations. And so this shows an analysis of that. You can use the bridge analysis to look at it. So he recommended paint. Well, paint doesn't necessarily affect the condition of that bridge. The only thing that it's going to do is to prolong the deterioration. And so that's what you can see looking at this model. In the bottom left towards the middle, you can see a deterioration curve for your bridge, which there's not much change to, right? Because we're only painting the superstructure, which shows me that something else is controlling the deterioration of that bridge, which is the deck, and we'll show that later. But then you can see if you look at just the individual element itself for the steel beam, that the curve has shifted from the red to the blue. It's delayed your deterioration. So that's kind of what you see. And then when you start to look at what's the benefit of that. So within BrM, we have a utility factor, which will try to take all that in account and show you what the change is or what the benefit of that is. At this time, there is no benefit because the only benefits you're going to see would actually be in the life cycle cost analysis. That part's still under development, and we'll show you kind of how that works later. But this lets you see, based on the inspector's recommendation, what's the benefit of that. And as you can see, if you look at the individual components on the bottom right, it shows you here's what your element conditions are right now, and if you perform this action, here's what those element conditions will be. So that's all based on actions that you've entered into the system and benefits that you've entered into the system. So that's looking at just the bridge analysis of the inspector's recommendations. The other thing that you can do is what's called reverse calculation. So what this does is basically looks at any action that could be done on this bridge and returns what's the benefit of it. So now you can see a complete list of any action that is deemed to would have a benefit on this bridge. So now as somebody, hey, there's a lot more stuff here than what my inspector recommended. And when you start to looking at it, you can see that there's actions dealing with your deck and feeling your bridge rail and your joints that would be less costly and be of more benefit to your bridge. And you can also see, it's kind of hard to see here, but it's also recommending multiple actions to your bridge, or say your deck. So you have one that's called deck place overlay, and then it's also saying, hey, another benefit would be to just do a total deck rehab. But then that's where your cost benefit analysis starts to come in and say, all right, well, which one of these actions is more beneficial for my bridge? And they rank them in order based on that utility and the effect that it has. So in this case, we've chosen to do 3 actions We've showed to do joint rehabilitation, deck overlay, and to do rehab of our bridge rail. And so then with those actions, you now see your deterioration curves, one for the overall bridge and one for the deck itself. You can see the curve shifts up and delays your deterioration, goes at a different rate. Okay, so you've changed your curve, you've bought more time. You can also delay this, so you can say, I can't do this action now, but I'm going to do it in 5 years. So what happens if I do that? So that's the kind of things you can do looking at it for the different actions on a specific bridge that was not recommended by your inspector. That'll just look at all actions that return a benefit. Then you can start to get into some life cycle cost analysis. In here, you'll see your original deterioration curve and your deterioration curve if I do those 3 actions that I laid out. In the software, you will define a profile for life cycle costs. You're going to say, if my bridge reaches this condition, this is what I'd like to do. If my deck gets to this condition, then the only action I'd like to see is a deck replacement. So you're going to set the parameters that would be done over the life cycle of this bridge, and then it takes into account, if I do this action now, how does that impact it? And you can see your curves shift significantly from the red to the blue, where it's about by 25 years where you would end up delaying a deck replacement or a full bridge replacement on this structure through the life cycle cost analysis of those 3 actions that you defined earlier. So that's looking at it at a bridge level, and you said, well, how did you put that together? This is the utility tree. This is where we take a whole lot of things that are not apples to apples and compare them together, put them on one framework where they can be tied together. So this is what kind of comes out of the box. You have a condition component. You can base that on NBI grades or element grades, however you choose to, or both. And then there's the life cycle cost component. That's the only place you're going to get benefit out of painting, out of crack sealing, things like that, because they do not improve. So all your preservation actions don't improve the condition of your bridge, but they prolong it. So that's where that'll show some benefit that'll show up in the total utility, and then you can have things such as mobility. How does this impact your traffic? And then risk. How do we incorporate risk such as scour, seismic activity, those type of things? You can place them in here to start to see the benefit of those actions as well, which again do not have a direct benefit to the condition of your bridge, but you've reduced the risk. So that's kind of at the bridge level. Then, so that's looking at things, but we all have way too many bridges to go through and do the analysis like that on every single bridge. So then you got to start to look at this from a network level. And in here you can define specific actions to be considered at the network level. Now these are going to be probably more higher level than the detailed ones you get, but this will help to scope your projects and look at what's the best thing to do, and then you could get in there and more refine it. If you took all that list of actions that were available for a bridge and tried to do this on all one of them, your computation time is going to be phenomenal. You hit the button, come back about a week later, and it may be finished. So you've got to cut that down and look at it from a more higher level. But in doing that, you're still able to look at not just one action on a bridge, but you're able to look at combination of those actions. So, you wouldn't do a super replacement and without doing anything to your deck. It's not possible, right? So you have to look at combining these things, and you can define all of those different combinations here within the program at the network level. So then once you've set your network policies, then you can start to set up your programs. So this is the programs module, and we'll look at each one of these kind of individual. So first thing you can kind of set up for this program is set up my performance measures. And in here you can see there's 3 that are set up, but basically you can use for a performance measure any numerical field that's within your database. So you can choose that here. It's using average utility, average health index, and it says percent good or fair or poor. So you can either do that based on the number of bridges or your percent deck area, which would be tie into the performance measures proposed by FHWA. So these would be your constraints that you're running your programs or your targets. And so in this case, you can see we've chose to set 2 targets, one based on health index, average health index of our structures, and percent good, fair, and forward. So we set these targets for the program. Then you can get into your funding allocations. You can do this if you want, or you can let it just optimize it. In this one, they've decided to allocate it between 3 different districts and allocate the funding equally just to make sure the money's being spread around the state. The other thing to do now, once you've set your funding allocations, you look at your programs. In some cases, we already have a 5-year program set, right? Maybe you have a 2-year program set. So you can go in here with a system and look at those projects that are already in there, and you can say, you've got to freeze this project. This one's already planned. We're not moving it. Leave it as it is to be considered in my program analysis. So you can tell it, keep this project as it is in this year, or you can say, keep this bridge in this year, but optimize what we're doing to this. Or vice versa, you can say, keep it in the program, but you choose what year it's best to choose. So this is where you start to optimize, what's the best thing to do for my bridges to get the most bang for your buck. And this would be a combination of just computer software recommendations plus the programs that the projects that you've already defined. So then once you've run your program, this is kind of what you'll see, different graphs and charts that'll kind of compare these, and you can set these however you want. But we'll just zoom in on one. So if I run this program with this funding allocation and these performance measures, this is looking at the average health index in this specific year, and you can see the purplish triangles are what currently was the average health index for these districts, and then you can see the green, which is what my target would be, and then the blue is what I actually achieved by running this optimization. Okay, so it optimized that, and you can see in every case except for one, it exceeded my target. But in one, it didn't quite meet it, but it got the best that it could based on the funding levels that I gave, because we all know we don't have enough money to fully meet exactly everything we could, but this optimized it. So you could change that if you wanted to look at a different year, if you wanted to look at a different performance measure, but then you can start to see how does this performance of the program that I've selected. Then you get into more of instead of looking at just one program and one funding, now you get to your scenario explorers, where you can say, how many times do you get asked, hey, what if you got $50 million more? What would that do to your program? So this is where you would come in to see. So this would be a chart of looking at percent good or fair. The black line would be if I kept the money that I've always got status quo, and what if they reduce it? You might see, you would see my percent decline, and if I got more money, the green line shows that my percent good fair goes up. So you can really start to see with the funding levels you've got how it projects out. We all hope that our lines keep going up, but we know based on some of just like Texas said yesterday, the aging population that we got, if funding doesn't go up, those lines are going to start to go down, and there's nothing we can do about it. So these will help you to make those plans and give you something that you can show to your upper management. Here's what happens if we keep this the same. Here's what happens if you give us this much more money, what we'd be able to do to our network of bridges. Then you get into looking at some of the executive summaries, some of the other things that may be something that's, again, more tangible, something you can really show to your upper management or to legislatures that they can understand. You'll see these pie charts and bar graphs. We'll look at just a couple of them. So based on the program scenario that I ran, this would show you what the average health index of those bridges are for the 5 years that we considered in this program for each year. So you can see 2015, 16, 17, every year how that health index is affected by the fundings that we have now. And again, this is just based on health index. You could run that on good, fair, poor, whatever it is. As long as it's a numerical value, you'd be able to set those up. Here's another one we all understand. This again showing a number of bridges that are good, fair, and poor, or bad is what this one says. And then it even breaks it down further into looking at how many from each district fall into those categories. So this is based on current, but then you could also take and look at that for each year of your different program and project out based on the funding you have and the programs that you've had, what would be the condition of my bridge population in the future. So I ran through that pretty fast. I only had 20 minutes, so I know that was really high level, but I don't know, do we have time for a question or two?
Thank you, Eric. Which version of BRM are you using?
This, what you see right there, is a lot of what's coming in 523. That's scenario analysis and that. The deterioration stuff is in 522. Okay. But 523 is where you're going to get into the network level analysis and the scenario. A lot of that's the first time it's probably been seen by anybody out there. But that's what's under development and should be.
That's coming this year sometime, you think?
Yes, it should be going to beta testing. I guess the first round of beta testing is scheduled right now for the second week in April. So, assuming we can get it through, and as soon as we can get that beta testing cycle done, it'll be out. But probably end of the summer, first of the fall is what we're looking at right now.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, does the software have the capability to learn? So like if you add, like last year's program was this, and then, or like this year's program is gonna be this, and then next year when you go into there, you actually will have real data in there?
Well, I guess it would. Yeah, it would. It's still going to look at what the current year is to do as a base. But as far as learning, that's something that's going to be developed over time to learn more about how to use that history to refine your deterioration curves and cost analysis and stuff like that. That'll be something that's coming down the road that we plan to add in there. But it'll adjust based on what your current conditions are. Yeah.
To do the beta testing, will you have to move your data up from 522 to 523, and is that a challenging exercise or smooth?
There shouldn't be from 522 to 523. There's no real major database changes like there is going to 522. The 522 change is a whole change from metric to English units, plus a whole change in the structure. So there shouldn't be a whole lot of change in upgrading from 522 to 523 on the database side.
And how easy is it to update the deterioration models and so on? How much flexibility?
You have full flexibility to set those. You can go in there and change them to however. You can set those transition rates to whatever you want. It's pretty easy to do.
And adding in protective elements of your own is easy as well?
There's already protective elements in there, and I guess you could do that on an agency one, and then you would assign a protection factor that's associated with that, and then you're also able to set the rate of deterioration of your protective system.
And what happens if, say, you eliminate a joint over an existing pier? Can it handle a change like that?
I'm not sure.
You can probably handle it by moving your environment from...
Yeah, you probably change the environment of that structure. That'd probably be the easiest way, like Richard said, yeah.
Make it easy on Ed. I was going to wait for him to go over there and ask a question. Eric, is there a training available or being developed?
Yes.
By ASHTO?
That's one of the things that's going with 522 right now is a complete rewrite of the whole user manual. So that'll be coming out with 522, and then it's a lot better explaining how to do it. Plus there's going to be some webinars coming up that show how to do it. And then at the user group meeting, a lot of what's planned for that, we'll be training in the new 523 and the 522 stuff. So, yeah. All right. I'll be around if you have more questions. Just catch me later.
Thank you, Eric.